I'm Darley Newman, and I'm right outside of Ford Mansion here in Morristown National Historical Park, one of the many places where George Washington stayed, and one of the many places where we're sharing untold stories of the American Revolution here in New Jersey. It's Travels with Darley, and we're on a revolutionary road trip. We're taking a revolutionary road trip to Morristown, Trenton, and Monmouth Battlefield in New Jersey, visiting national and state park sites where key encampments and battles took place during the American Revolution. We're mixing in colonial history with other area history and culture that you might want to experience in the Garden State. We're starting our adventures in Morristown, a little over 30 miles from Manhattan. General George Washington established 2 winter encampments in Morristown during the Revolutionary War, and their history is shared at Morristown National Historical Park. Ranger Eric Olson leads me on a tour of the park, which was the first National Historical Park established in the United States. We're starting at Ford Mansion. Love this Georgian architecture.
Yeah, one officer referred to it as the Great White House at the far edge of town. I mean, a lot of homes at that time would only be about the size of the hallway in this house. But the Fords had money, and they wanted you to know they had money, so they built themselves a big, fancy house.
So this is another location where George Washington would have slept.
This was his headquarters for 6 months. He was here from December 1779 all the way till June 1780. In some ways, you can consider this the Pentagon. It's where the war is being directed from. General Washington brings 5 officers with him. They're his aides de camp, his secretaries. Broadway star Alexander Hamilton is one of those guys. Every winter, his wife comes to visit him because he never goes home. Diplomats from France and Spain visit, since France and Spain were fighting England too. They come up from Philadelphia to meet with Washington. The house was actually sleeping anywhere from 30 to over 100 people a night. That's why they tried to pick the biggest house in town. But Mrs. Ford had to give her permission. If she said no, by law, Washington would have had to go somewhere else.
Mrs. Ford was very accommodating because this house would have been bursting at the seams.
It's sort of neat. You have the commander-in-chief of the army in your house, but it also makes your house a target.
The home today is a museum, furnished with period pieces and reproductions.
We're in Jockey Hollow now. We're about 5 miles south of where we were earlier at Washington's headquarters, and we are now coming up to the home of Henry Wick. He was the biggest landowner in the township at the time, owned 1,400 acres when most farmers only owned about 70. Most of it was still covered with trees, the way it is now, and that's why the Army came. They wanted the trees so they could chop them down, use them to build log cabins, and use them for firewood.
How many trees did they take down to build those cabins?
Altogether, they took down over 2,000 acres of trees.
Wow.
Mr. Wick lost about 600 acres. That's basically 2,000 football fields worth of land just being cleared off. They need it for not only building the cabins, they probably built over 1,000 log huts, but they need it for firewood to keep them warm during the worst winter in the 18th century. So for a little while, what's now this wonderful park was one of the biggest cities in the United States.
How many log cabins would have been on this hill, for instance?
Oh, there would have been a lot. I mean, there were probably 2,000 soldiers occupying the huts on this hill, so hundreds of huts. And there were the clustered huts like the ones you see up there that were for the enlisted men. Each one of them would hold 12 guys. Then behind them would be officers' huts, which held anywhere from maybe 4 to 1, depending on your rank.
At Washington's headquarters museum, you can take a deeper dive into history.
Now, Washington, everybody always thinks of him as a general, or they think of him as a president. He thought of himself as a farmer. He was, at that time, what they would call a scientific farmer. He was trying new methods. In his farm ledger, he recorded everything that went on in his farm. Corn
Sent to the mill. We've got carpenters and bricklayers for the work.
It's not a ratty.
You can get interactive inside the Discovery History Center, which features activities for kids.
So this is called a regimental coat. The buttons look like they're all there for show, but they actually have a purpose. You could unbutton all the buttons on one side and button it across to close up your coat in the winter. Ideally, they had blue coats with different colored trim to denote what region you were from.
It was really practical at the essence.
Yeah, I mean, it's wool. This is actually what you had winter and summer. So we're in nice wool, it's 100 degrees out.
How hard was it to get people to join?
When the war first breaks out, there's a lot of patriotism and people all join up. But then when they discover that the war's going to last more than a few weeks or a few months, they want to go back home. They've got a farm, they've got a family, they've got a job. And so The people who they tend to get were unemployed guys, young guys, recent immigrants, but it's always a hassle for them to try to get enough men.
While Alexander Hamilton was here in Morristown working with General George Washington, he managed to find a little free time to court his future wife, Elizabeth Schuyler. At the Schuyler-Hamilton House, curator Pat Safner shares the love story.
A romance in 1780. Alexander Hamilton fell in love with Elizabeth Schuyler, who was staying here with her aunt and uncle.
So love blossomed amid all this chaos.
It blossomed amid a huge, horrible winter with 100 inches of snow. I have this image of Hamilton coming to the door, knocking on it, and saying, "Oh, I'm perishing of the cold. I can't make it another 4 steps to get to headquarters. It's only a half-mile away." He was looking to go higher than his social level, and that Miss Elizabeth Schuyler had in spades. She was well-educated, she was beautiful, she was part of a family that had great social ties. He was missing a lot of those things.
This house is obviously very old. How is it that it has stood the test of time and been so well preserved here?
Well, it's gone through a number of owners, and nobody was interested in this little farmhouse in Morristown. And then, 100 years ago, the Daughters of the American Revolution, one of them in Morristown, read in the newspaper that the house was for sale, and couldn't the chapter find the funds to save this home? And they did.
County Commissioner John Krickus is introducing me to the Morristown Green, a historical park in the center of town that reflects a community spirit that reaches back to the American Revolution.
Across the street, where you see the modern buildings, was Arnold's Tavern, and that was Washington's first headquarters. After the battles of Princeton and Trenton, the Army came here from about January to May of 1777. Here you see Hamilton with Lafayette delivering the great news to George Washington that the French fleet and French army are coming to America. He's bringing Washington the news that the French are sending an army and they're sending ships, which was terrific news. And of course, they would play a critical role at Yorktown.
Next, I find a place where history mixes with
Cheers.
beer.
Welcome to Glenbrook Brewery.
I'm liking this revolutionary beer theme.
At Glenbrook Brewery, co-owner Darren Cregan has created beers named after Morristown's historic places and parks.
When my partner and head brewer, Heath, came to me with the idea to start a brewery, it got my wheels spinning. I decided to pay homage to all the great history we have here in town. So our first beer he won an award for was Jockey Hollow Pumpkin Ale, and that set the wheels in motion. From there, we trademarked our tagline, Revolutionary Beer, and started naming all of our beers after the parks, like Lewis Morris Park, Tempe Wick Farmhouse Sour, and it just snowballed.
And you've got the Schuyler Seltzer?
Yeah, the Schuyler Seltzer, yep. It's our most popular line of seltzers.
Well, you seem to be very popular with people who love history because there are a lot of reenactors in here today.
Yes, they're here all the time.
I join the reenactors for a toast.
Would you like to learn something about New Jersey?
Of course.
I'm thirsty.
I'm thirsty too.
Cheers.
And if you want to grab a drink or have some food, here's another revolutionary location.
The Grain House Restaurant. During the winter of 1778, George Washington stored grain for his troops at Jockey Hollow. It's over 250 years old, and the bones of this building still remain. And if you're venturing inside, the specialty drink is the Copper Top Teeny.
We're traveling further into revolutionary New Jersey, about an hour south of Morristown, at Monmouth Battlefield State Park, where I meet Mike Timpanaro, who shares about this landmark battle.
Take me back to the Battle of Monmouth. It was the hottest and longest battle.
The hottest, longest. I can give you all the ists you want.
Do it, do it.
It is the last major battle of the North. It's the largest field artillery battle of the war. There are more cannons moving around this battlefield than many other battles combined. You've got the who's who's list of anybody you could think of in the war is probably here.
When people visit this state park site, what do they find most surprising?
New Jersey was where half the war was fought. We're stuck between New York and Philadelphia. For the Revolutionary War, that meant we're stuck between the American capital and the ad hoc British capital of North America.
What was the significance in the greater American Revolution?
This is a major psychological victory. What Washington was fighting with Congress for years was to get a trained army. He proves to Congress and to the soldiers themselves, and here they get a chance to use it. That is a major, major victory for the Americans.
While strolling through the museum on site, I read about the legend of Molly Pitcher.
Who was Molly Pitcher?
25 years after the war was over, a common soldier by the name of Joseph Plum Martin publishes his book. He was a soldier throughout most of the war, and he kept a journal. And in it, he claims he looked over and saw a woman helping her husband on the cannon. And at one point, she takes a step, and a cannonball bounces between her legs and rips her petticoat. Seeing that nothing else is damaged, she continues to do her job for the rest of the battle. She's doing one of the jobs that's moving, which is the runner, who's behind the gun, but is constantly bringing the ammunition to the front of the gun, turning around and going back and getting the next round. The guns are firing at roughly 4 shots a minute, so every 15 seconds, she's running up at 100-degree weather. Every other person on that battlefield...
In a lot of layers.
In a lot of layers. Yeah. She's walking into the line of fire with high explosives, handing it off, and going back and getting another one, not taking a break. That's a hero.
I'm thinking Molly Pitcher, she was pretty cool then.
Not far from Monmouth Battlefield, you'll find a family business dating back to Revolutionary War times. Laird and Company. Lisa Laird Dunn and her family are continuing a long tradition of making apple-based spirits.
Lisa, it's not every day that you can meet a family who's been distilling spirits since the American Revolution. And a lot of barrels are here.
A lot of barrels.
It's like a sea.
You know, I'm 9th generation. My family's been distilling apple brandy, Laird's Applejack, since the 1700s. So here we are in our 10th generation.
So how many apples does it take to make 1 barrel of Applejack?
So 1 barrel has 7,000 pounds of apples.
Okay, wow.
And the apple brandy that is in there is 130 proof.
In here, it smells great, actually.
It's a beautiful aroma.
Reminds me of the holidays.
Exactly, because you're getting that apple and you're getting that spiced from with the wood, so you're getting all those aromas. You're getting some of that toffee and that cinnamon and vanilla that's coming through with the apple.
When would people have been, during the American Revolution and that time period, been drinking Applejack?
They drank it 24/7 pretty much. You know, water was unsafe. Coffee was very expensive during this time period. They didn't have coffee breaks. They had cider spirit breaks. It was my 4 greats-grandfather, Robert Laird, and his brother Richard Laird, who were dragoons under General George Washington. Of course, we did supply the troops with our Laird's Applejack.
Maybe that was helpful in some of these battles.
Well, I always do like to say that. I don't know how true it is, but I think it's, you know, one of the reasons, or probably one of the primary reasons, that the young soldiers had that fortitude to cross the Delaware that cold Christmas Eve night, which was a turning point in the Revolutionary War.
You helped America become America.
Something to do with it.
We head to the tasting room so I can sample Applejack.
So the Jersey Lightning.
One of the nicknames was Jersey Lightning because New Jersey was so well known for the production of Applejack. So Jersey, and then Lightning because of its potency.
I'm in New Jersey, so I gotta try the Jersey Lightning.
Cheers.
Cheers.
In the 1700s, the product was not aged. They were pretty much drinking it right off the still.
It's strong, yeah.
It's 100 proof.
It gets in the back of in my throat. It's like
you get the apple flavor that comes through with the product. You'll get some peaches, some pear. You get some vegetal characteristics from the terroir.
Yeah, it's actually quite nice.
It is.
I feel like if I were on the battlefield and I wasn't feeling well, I would be drinking this for sure.
This is what George Washington, when he was in New Jersey, was drinking.
It's truly a piece of America.
It's been produced for over 300 years.
Cheers.
And the family's been doing it all along.
Samuel Laird, Lisa Laird Dunn's ancestor, was a former owner of a historic tavern located down the road from Laird and Company. Today, you can share in more George Washington history inside the Colt's Neck Inn Steakhouse.
Well, Colt's Neck Inn is from 1717. George Washington used to stay here. The picture behind me, that's the wall, that's the original.
I know people come for the history, but also the food.
Our steaks, too.
Steaks, yeah.
Yes.
Steak and history.
Yes.
Good combination. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Next, I'm traveling to Trenton, New Jersey, to a building along the Washington-Rochambeau Revolutionary route that dates back to 1719, the William Trent House. Inside, Algernon Ward educates us on a regiment from Revolutionary War times.
The 1st Rhode Island Regiment that I'm representing was called the Black Regiment because Rhode Island couldn't raise its quota of soldiers. They offered freedom to any African-American slave or Native American that would join the regiment. These soldiers literally marched from Rhode Island into Trenton on their way to Yorktown for the final battle, and they stopped here. And so I'm here representing those soldiers.
You're touching so many people's lives, one at a time, a group at a time. They just look into your eyes when you're telling the story and you can feel your passion, and that's what makes history exciting.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? I believe that part of the obligation of every American is to be an informed citizen. And that means knowing history, and that means all of the history, so that when you make a decision today, it's based upon historical precedent. America is a work in progress. We're not done yet. But in order to understand where you're going, you need to know where you're coming from.
In downtown Trenton, close to the mural depicting the first public reading of the Declaration of Independence outside of Philadelphia, which was in Trenton, I find barbecue. And it's where I meet entrepreneur Reggie Mallett.
We've had North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama barbecue, and now we're about to have some New Jersey barbecue. Reggie?
How are you today?
This looks so good.
Thank you, thank you.
We've got macaroni and cheese, we've got ribs, we've got chicken, we've got baked beans with?
Peaches.
Whoa.
These are our Georgia peach baked beans. This what you're looking at right now is called a little bit of everything.
Now, what is in the dry rub?
Yeah, I knew that was coming, but I can't tell you.
That rub is gonna remain a secret because I don't know what's in it, but it's good. It's really good.
We're heading back to Morristown to experience their annual Morristown Festival on the Green. In and around their historic green, vendors share local and diverse food, music, games for kids, and booths where museums and attractions get me primed for more Morristown exploration. I'm taking a walk with Amy Curry, the executive director of the Morris County Historical Society.
Your specialty deals somewhat with the millionaires who moved here to Morristown.
Sure. So these are the barons of industry, the people who, really invested as technology was coming up, and they made their spring and fall homes here. At one time, there were more millionaires per square mile in Morristown than anywhere else in the world.
The millionaires who moved here to Morristown, what legacy have they had?
A lot of the mansions that still survive, they are the home to museums, like the Frelinghuysen Twin Oaks Mansion that is Morris Museum, the Frelinghuysen Arboretum, even green spaces that are preserved are of these millionaires. So we benefit today because of the homes that they built.
For over 90 years, the Seeing Eye has been training guide dogs and people. Trainer Lauren Christie teaches me about some of the training that happens in their Morristown facility and throughout the streets of Morristown with the dog she's currently training, Winston.
So the Seeing Eye, we've been operating since 1929, matching people who are blind and visually impaired with guide dogs. And Morristown is basically our classroom. So we train the dogs for about 4 months here, teaching them the basic guide work. And then the 5th month of training is actually with the person and the dog together, learning to work as a team so that they can go home and have 10 long years of working together.
It must be a great training ground on a day like this because there's so many distractions.
That's actually one of the most important parts of our jobs that our puppy raisers have. Is their whole first year of life is just going out and experiencing things like this so that when they're matched with the person at the end, they can just focus on keeping that person safe and ignoring, all the dogs and stuff that are hanging around out here today.
I walk from the Morristown Green to the Mayo Performing Arts Center to take the stage with Ed Kirchstoffer.
It's always fun to stand on a stage. This theater's much larger than I thought it would be from the outside.
We were originally built as a single-screen movie theater called the Community Theater. It opened in 1937 and it was Morristown's first-run movie theater. When we opened as a performing arts center in 1994, we had about 200 shows a year, and we bring in about 200,000 people annually to our building.
It's neat that this location is so central to the downtown area, and the Morristown Green is just steps away.
Great on a show night, you just see the buzz in the community. energy. The restaurants are full. The town is teeming with energy of the excitement of a big show coming into town.
The Morris Museum houses art and natural history collections, including works related to the American Revolution. Executive Director Tom Lohman guides me through.
We were founded in 1913 as a curiosity cabinet at a local social service agency called the Neighborhood House. And in 1964, we moved into this much different atmosphere, the ancestral home of the Frelinghuysen family. One of the really great things about the fine art collection here is it includes a number of portraits of the founding fathers.
George.
George. By George, here you are.
George is everywhere in New Jersey.
He was, and he was, of course, all over the area as the commander of the Revolutionary Forces. This is a copy, a period copy of Gilbert Stuart's Vaughan portrait.
How does this version compare to the original?
Oh, it's a very, very faithful copy. Interestingly, it's painted on wood. The original is painted on canvas. And I think when you paint on wood, some of the luminous quality of oil paint is activated. You can see the kind of flesh tones come alive in the gallery lights that we have on the picture now.
A younger Benjamin Franklin portrait here.
So this is a court portrait painted by a very high-style European artist at a time when Franklin was a loyalist. He was the Postmaster General to the King of England. And in this portrait, we see a very formal court look at Franklin as a proud Englishman.
McCullough Hall is another well-preserved house that's now a museum. Political cartoonist Thomas Nast lived in Morristown, and his work is just one of the great collections here. Trisha Pongratz guides me through.
And what's significant about the house is not only its state of preservation, because the same family lived in it from 1810 through the mid-20th century, but the fact that W. Parsons Todd, the founder of the museum, filled the house with the work of Thomas Nast. Thomas Nast was an American political cartoonist and really made his mark working for Harper's Weekly for about 25 years. And he's probably the best American artist you don't know you know. He's most famous for this image of Santa. You can see the artist's proof here on the wall, and then what we've done, because Morristown is home to the seeing eye, is we've elected to create this as a 3D tactile portrait. Touching it enhances your understanding of the drawing, so it really allows you to explore this in detail with your eyes, but also with your hands.
The Nast collection here includes 2 rare large canvases that were part of Nast's Caricaturama, which was a touring theater show with music and narration, accompanying the displays of paintings, which portrayed Nast's take on American history.
We have artists taking their art on the road and in galleries. We have all these immersive exhibitions today. And his was almost an immersive exhibition way before its time.
It was literally political theater. Nast was using really strong visuals to express his political beliefs.
Now we're at the Black Horse Pub and Tavern, reputed to be the oldest continuously running restaurant here in the state of New Jersey, dating back to 1742, and actually the barn and what used to be a home in the beginning and then was later an inn or a type of ordinary date back to this time period. This is a really fun place to imagine the people who came here prior to us and stopped here to stay the night, stopped here to rest over during colonial times. And today it has a really nice community feel. The people of Mendham really support this place. So let's go grab a pint. I do love tasting history. You really learn so much when you're able to bring history to life, and we've really seen that here in New Jersey. Thanks so much for joining me on this truly revolutionary road trip where we just have to end with a toast. Cheers. Thanks for joining me. Cheers!
George Washington drank out of that glass. George Washington used the knife and fork. George Washington slept here.
Yes.
Welcome to New Jersey. You're doing Jersey proud today, I'm telling you.
Well, I am a Jersey girl.
I love it.
I am Jersey proud.
Where's the Applejack? Barbecue.
Would you like to learn something about New Jersey?
Of course.
I'm thirsty.
I'm thirsty too.
Cheers.